Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the McConaughey at YouTube with another model video. Today we're going to give the full treatment to the Bandai 1144 scale mobile GOOhN from Gundam Seed. Minted around the 2000s, retailing for an incredibly cheap 400 yen, 3 runners, around 30 parts, and a tiny sticker sheet with 6 polycaps. Very minimal articulation, quite a bit of hollow components, seam lines, and simplified detail in a few areas. Regardless, it is a very unusual design of mobile suit made in an era where majority of the popular Gundams and grunts were dedicated to have master grades, many high grades, and the lesser suits would be put aside with about 10 or 20 basic kits for each series, ending 2010s with Gundam Age. Bandai's in an experimental state with its beginning or first grades. In recent times, with the reissuing of older kits from 80s models to now, people have been picking them up quite cheaply and complaining due to the lackluster of color and gimmicks. I'm going to show you how you can put a lot of love and attention into it in making it interesting with cutting components out, drafting, 3D printing parts, filling seam lines, and using a whole course of traditional scale modeling skills that modelers have applied a good 30-40 years ago. Excluding resin expensive garage kits, otherwise we would not have been able to get our hands on this. This is one of the most unique and unusual Gundam kits that I've come across and added to my collection. I'm actually sitting on quite a few of them. Ignoring the instructions altogether and adding extra articulation and color separation, I hollowed the inside and cut out the mono eye and panels to design and 3D print components that could be stuck in to give that little extra detail. All of the limbs were glued together with plastic cement and filled with a range of putties. This project has been on my bench for about 3 to 4 years when Gundam Plus opened. The proportions and scale is absolutely spot on. The panels were deepened with a tungsten panel line scribe to deepen the details so washes, paint and detailing can be added. Magnets were added in the middle to be separatable, and the feet were filled with the under legs and the side armpit areas filled with details using kotobukiya aftermarket parts and panel line sculpted with plastic strips. This kit has undergone quite a bit of work and awkward modifications and were mounted on alligator clips fairly successfully and easily to be hit with automotive filler primer via a 0.5mm Ophir airbrush. Regardless of the very thick micro-filling properties, there were a few pits and issues in the putty work and seams, which went again with a round of sanding from very coarse grit to fine polishing and re-hit with Mr. Dissolved putty in any faulted areas. Allowed to dry over a period of 24 hours and re-sanded. After the second coat of primer, everything popped quite nicely with a very smooth and ideal finish ready for painting. What makes this kit work really well is all the detail and the presentation is focused in the center triangle. The limbs are attached by a ball joint that slides a polycap onto a peg, and it gives it a very loose articulation that can naturally pose in any way you desire. Much like a children's toy intended for kids, it has strong joints and pulls apart and comes together easily, though hinted that this can also be applied for adults and serious scale modelers. This modular paint set came out so you can airbrush it in lacquers in the anime correct colors. I've seen quite a few out there that have done some wonderful paint jobs, though this paint set sadly has dried out. It's easily reconstituted with thinner and shuck up again. I picked this up very cheaply in Japan, though these paint sets by Mr. Color are long obsolete and gone. Comedically, the original retail of the paint set far exceeds the value of the kit. Going through my own modular set, I've chose out some paints to start off with the lower colours, with the orange at the top and vents. This is going to be a lot of masking and very painful. Again, this sat on my desk for quite a few months when I redug it up. After a good week of drying, I apply Tamiya masking tape in bulk over a large surface and pre-cut it, or cut tiny little lengths and stuck it in an engraved area to cover the pre-colored module. A very tedious and time-consuming process. Most would hand paint these areas in one color or do a bit of manual shading. On the main torso, we'll be doing this for multiple layers, and even though I'm laying on the base color of the module paint set, I will be doing a color gradient of 3 shades, with the main feature being the anime accurate color, starting with a very dark automotive shade coloring in all the appropriate parts. The correct color would be shaded over the bulk of it, and little highlights of a lighter green touched up in highlighted areas for the appearance of natural light hitting this object, shadowing and general definition. This gives a lot more for the eye to dart across the project and is a bit more appealing to hold your focus, besides it just being a weird subject. Again, multiple days were allowed to pass and masking tape were applied over these sections and trimmed. I'm almost at the halfway point at painting this, the same combination of a dark middle base color and light brown gradient light shading. Brown is very tricky as it kind of just makes everything look like a turd. It's not a very appealing color for robots, and too much of it is just hard to weather, shade, detail, or do anything interesting. I generally like to go for a chocolate or a colorful brown, or go very, very dark or very, very light to a sand color. This is anime accurate and there isn't too much brown. It is offset in contrast with a bright orange to a cream white. I managed to let go of it and pulled out some liquid smoke to darken other areas significantly. With all of my priming, sanding, surface prep, weighting, shading and masking, the fruits of my labor is revealed and everything is very neat. There might have been one or two tiny aspects that are not 100% neat, but with a fine brush and neatening up, it looks absolutely perfect to anybody. Some detail were hand painted, such as the middle missile pods, and we moved straight on to the cream color. Now, one mistake many modelers always take is they reach too easily to straight up black or straight up white. This is an absolute modeling sin, as the prefer of creams and colors and whites and grays is amazing. Be very playful and buy as many as you can, and I had a lot of fun going for more of a sand color and shading up to the base color with ever so slight amount of highlights with white, where I would normally lean to a light gray. To break up the large amount of detail, I moved on to water slide decals. I do have a collection of Gundam Seed markings, the ZAFT for the faction that this mobile suit belongs to, some general warning decals, and a squad insignia of a swordfish. I think that might have come from the Universal Century, but I digress. We did some definition and weathering by thinning down panel line wash and touching up all of the detail and panel lines. The pre-scribing we did has rewarded us quite well with very deep animation-like lines, followed by a few coats of a very wet lacquer automotive gloss clear coat to really give it that slick water shine. Everything was hard assembled with PVA wood glue for a permanent fix and not damaging the paint. About 2 to 3 weeks were allowed to sit, cook out and chemically harden. Once I got my greasy, dirty, filthy hands on it, not a single fingerprint or fault was left behind, and I was given with a nice appealing finish. I'm not going to lie to you, this isn't the best kit out there and not ideal for a beginner unless you're going to slap it and touch it up with a bit of hand painting or Gundam markers, but the effort was very worthwhile. This was a diamond in the rough. The proportions and detail is 100% there and perfect for a collector of grunts or anything Gundam Seed aquatic. Excluding the 3D printing part, that process can be swapped with kit bashing and spare parts. None of these techniques were necessarily difficult, just very time consuming and one step at a time. I'm extremely happy with the effort put in and the finished result I got out. I could have polished and done a few more coats on the gloss, but the love was not 100% in there, and you got to call a project done at some stage and focus on something else. The colors do pop and come out quite nice, almost anime cell-ish. The biggest treat with this project was actually matching a kit to one of those 3-piece Mr. Color Gundam Aftermarket paint sets and painting up the project. As I do a lot of shading, pairing it into 3 modular sets was not very hard with a larger or vast collection of paints, or if you're willing to mix some of your own colors. The set is not 100% necessary, as you can match this with the Mr. Color range or even blend your own paints. All that said and done, thank you very much for watching, and as always, until next time, stay tuned for further content, and we'll catch you guys next time. See you later.